program implementation, I'm very pleased to announce that we have reached a staff-level agreement on the first review of the program. Let me add that the agreement is subject to the approval of IMF management, and our executive board, once the necessary financing assurances have been received. An agreement with official creditors on the debt treatment in line with program parameters would provide these needed financing assurances. Once our executive board review is completed, Ghana would have access to another $600 million, bringing the total IMF financial support disbursed under the arrangement since May, when the program was approved, to about $1.2 billion. Before you hear from the Honorable Minister, the Governor, and we take your questions, allow me to provide a brief overview of our assessment at the current juncture. First, our assessment is that performance under the program has been very strong and consistent with the authorities' commitments. Specifically, the authorities have adjusted the course of policy making to confront very difficult economic and financial conditions and to ensure a brighter future for all Ghanaians. On the fiscal front, more specifically, the government has adjusted the policy stance to bring about a reduction in deficits and restore the sustainability of public finances. This started with a bold 2023 budget that sought to increase revenues and reduce expenditure. Our assessment is that fiscal performance has been strong, and Ghana is on track to lower the fiscal primary deficit on a commitment basis by about 4 percentage points of GDP this year, so in line with the program objectives. The government has met its non-oil revenue mobilization target at end June, the target under the program. It has also kept spending within the program limits. Importantly, the authorities have significantly expanded social protection programs to help mitigate the impact of the crisis and fiscal adjustment on the most vulnerable. And the government is committed to provide more support in the context of the upcoming budget. The government has also made progress in its debt restructuring strategy, so another big plank underpinning the fund-supported program. And in particular, the government successfully completed its domestic debt restructuring over the summer. Monetary policy has been appropriately tightened. Wide-ranging reforms are being implemented to bolster domestic revenues, improve spending efficiency, strengthen public financial management, strengthen debt management, enhance transparency, and tackle financial challenges in the energy and cocoa sector. The authorities' economic reforms also include measures to ensure financial stability and also to make the environment more conducive to private sector investment and job creation. Now, not all the challenges are going to be solved overnight, and there is still a lot of work ahead. But what makes us very optimistic is that these actions are already generating positive results. Growth in 2023 has proven more resilient than what we were initially envisaging. Inflation has declined. The fiscal and external positions have improved. International reserves are increasing again, and exchange rate volatility has significantly reduced. Let me stop here. I'll be happy to take questions, but before I turn to the Honorable Minister, I would like to thank him and Bank of Ghana Governor Addison and their teams, as well as representatives from various government agencies and as well as non-governmental stakeholders we have met over the course of the mission, and frankly over the past year, for very open and constructive engagement. Thank you.
The necessary discipline to make sure that we do that. And then we also would have negotiated with the IPPs and also with the Eurobond investors. And we have the DDEP program in place. And these are things that you cannot miss or default on. I think so all of those will really restrain any other expenditure that we might have gotten into.
We look at the Zambian experience, and some are worried about the
move from July 2022 to where we are, which a good number of people were betting that it will be impossible to get to where we are today. And we are here, and I think that's a testament to government's commitment to make it happen. We did get the financing assurances. I had to go to China, etc. Whatever is required to do, we will do. I'm confident that the OCC will come through in time for the board, the executive board approval in November. I think the only evidence you have is the amazing thing we did August 22nd, and we'll continue to fulfill that. I mean, I think the issue is, well, that there's reason maybe for some skepticism, but people should begin to look at the new data and honestly confront what has been done, and will feel reach to also international media as to what other countries have been unable to do. So we begin to talk, hope and positiveness in that. Certainly it's good to keep government on its toes with questions, but I think it should be also move in a direction that let people know that government is working hard to get to where we are today. Was it 2-3 weeks ago, in the direction that we're expecting the MOU, we really are confident that we'll get to it before the board meetings, to occur.
When is the MOU?
And the IMF. And this has made the 2-week mission very successful and fruitful, leading to the staff level agreement today. We have all established that the very decisive measures put in place by the government and the Bank of Ghana have started yielding results, signaling a faster than expected turnaround, which needs to be sustained as we reset the economy. More specifically, non-food inflation has dropped significantly by 19 percentage points. Food inflation has also come down by about 8 percentage points. Core inflation, which measures underlying inflation, is also decelerating at a fast pace. From the beginning of the year to date, the Bank of Ghana has built reserves of about $650 million instead of the programmed drawdown of $98 million. And this has been boosted by the innovative Gold for Reserves program. And as a result, we have seen relative stability in the exchange rate, depreciating by only 2.5% between February and now. It is therefore very important to sustain this strong performance and consolidate the gains we are seeing. Looking ahead, the Bank of Ghana will continue to maintain a tight monetary policy stance until it is confident that inflation is firmly anchored and aligned with the disinflation path agreed in the program. There will be challenges and difficulties as we work towards sustaining these gains, but we remain focused and committed to the reforms and prudent policies to ensure the full benefits of this program are achieved. I thank you very much.
The technical staff of the bank and the ministry and the team. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen of the media, and really also to thank you for honoring this invitation. The program, as you know, started on 17th May 2023 and approved then a 36-month IMF program under the ECF, which was $3 billion. And really to also thank the fund staff, Bank of Ghana, for negotiating sort of 3 times our quota. When you look at a country like Egypt, also at 3 billion of a much bigger GDP, and Tunisia at about 1 point something, you realize the extent to which the fund staff worked to give us this very needed space. And also the negotiations which ended up with front loading, such that, God willing, by November, we actually would then have released 1.2 billion of the 3 billion effective in that. So truly a lot of work has gone into this to give Ghana the opportunity to stabilize much faster. And this all hinged on the fact that Cabinet moved us very quickly to prepare the PC-PEC program, which then underpinned the work that the fund also had to do. So I'm pleased to announce that the progress that we sought to achieve is very, very much on course. The stability that the Ghanaian economy was very much in need of has been achieved. We said we have turned the corner. And the major economic indicators such as inflation, as Governor mentioned, the exchange rate continues to drop and stabilize, and there's confidence returning in the economy. I'm happy to confirm that Ghana has just completed its first review of the IMF program, as Stefan has announced. The first review, had key deliverables, including the 6 performance criteria, the 3 indicative targets, and the 3 structural benchmarks that were due at the end of June 2023. So you can imagine the work and the anxiety, the speed with which people have worked, even as we also try to manage demonstrations in the middle of that. But we are all good and we are in good order. So assessment of the progress at meeting program targets also due by end September 2023 and end December 2023, and discussions on the policy framework for 2024. So while we await the fund staff to present the full assessment of the targets, I think we are now in a very strong position to look ahead into the future and give all stakeholders the confidence that is needed to support the country. So that's the backdrop. But in all of this, as you know, we really want to give gratitude to the Almighty God for providing the needed guidance to both the government, the fund staff, and all of us to be here today. And we are very, very appreciative of what the Lord is doing for us in our economy as a country, and we believe He will perfect it to its logical conclusion. Let me also thank His Excellency the President for his continued leadership and direction through this period, and also the Vice President. And this is not really hackneyed. Cabinet has had to meet out of turn. We've had to have various EMT meetings, and so their engagement has been very important, and a commitment to make sure that the President himself is driving it with the energy that is required in the circumstance. And we can't take it for granted, because we do have a clear view of what's happened in Chad or Zambia or Sri Lanka, Egypt, Tunisia, and we know that something different is happening here. And therefore the leadership of all of these people we've mentioned are important. Expressing our appreciation to the IMF in general, and particularly also to the Managing Director, Kristalina, Stephen Roder, IMF Mission Chief to Ghana, and his team, and for their continued commitment to Ghana as we work to navigate our temporary crisis. I also have the really would like to thank the sector ministers and staff of the MMDAs, the CSO financial sector, and the private sector players whose consultation during this process succeeded in reaching this positive outcome. And for me here, I'll say my Linus blankets of Minister Amin and Deputy Minister Abina and Deputy Minister John. And it's beyond the work they do. It's also they being parliamentarians. And if I feel I'm overwhelmed, I wonder how they manage to do both. So sincere thanks for that support, the sacrifice and the hard work that is being shown at the ministry. So a lot of hard work indeed has gone into it, and it's a really significant milestone. I believe we might be sort of in recent times the fastest to get to this first review in 5 months. And as we steadily make progress toward the approval of the first review, there's still some work to be done through November, and I'm sure we'll rise up to that occasion. But we have also, beyond the quantitative performance criteria, the indicative targets, the structural benchmarks, also the turnaround strategy for Cocoa Board, and in addition, as Stefan mentioned, the issue of social intervention is important, and so the strategy to make sure that the LEAP program, capitation, etc., are truly anchored and are indexed to make sure that their lot does not get worse. And we also have agreed to increase this to about 2.5 million people in short order, moving from 350,000 households to 450,000 households going forward. So a strategy on reviewing the earmark funds, we have that in the medium-term revenue strategy. Performance for non-oil, Stefan mentioned, have been impressive this first half of the year, and we should continue with that. We also have an affirmative action bill, social protection bill, EPA bill, all approved, so that the empowerment of women and protecting the poor and vulnerable will be front and center to the work that we are doing. So it's important to note, though, that the SLA is only one aspect of the approval process. We have a few milestones to cross to secure board approval between now and November. Notably, of course, is the agreement and memorandum of understanding that we need to secure with the official creditor committee, the Paris Club. We are optimistic that once again our bilateral creditors will deliver the MOU in time for our board in November as we continue our engagements, which will continue to be positive. So let me also take the opportunity to thank the OCC for delivering the financial assurances in May, which has brought us this far. We also are making progress in our engagements with the Eurobond holders and commercial lenders, and we hope to pursue this in our trip to Marrakesh for the World Bank annual meetings, and hopefully by year end we should be able to secure that. So generally the macroeconomic environment continues to show strong signs of stability and recovery as government implements the IMF supported PCPEC program. Based on available data from year to date, GDP growth has rebounded strongly, averaging 3.2% in the first 2 quarters compared to 3% the same period in 2022, mainly on the back of growth in services and in agriculture. The average growth of 3.2% for Q1 and Q2 is higher than the 2023 revised growth target of 1.5%, so we are doing well. The latest price development in August 2023 also indicated a fall in headline inflation after consecutive upward trends since May 2023, and it dropped to 40.1%. And as the governor mentioned, we are looking very strongly at this to ensure that food prices come down. The Ghana cedi has remained relatively stable from the beginning of the year to date, depreciating cumulatively by 23.5% over that period. But that really is essentially a huge jump in January, and basically since February to date, about 2.5%, creating the type of stability that is required for businesses and for confidence to be built up. So